I find it interesting that out of all Nintendo's big franchises, Zelda has been consistently the one that Nintendo has decided to remake or remaster throughout the years. I mean, in general, it's just not something Nintendo really does that often. Pokemon had a phase for a bit, and they won't stop remaking Star Fox for the fourth time. But literally every 3D Zelda game has gotten a new shiny version at some point, even if some of them are kinda ass. And with all the hype and speculation surrounding the upcoming Switch 2 remake of Ocarina of Time, and with Tears of the Kingdom's success ensuring that we're probably never going to see another 2D mainline game ever again, do you hear yourself right now? But I guess it's kind of fitting given that what I want to talk about today is basically the reason that exists. A game I think about a lot and apparently really well liked by Silvergunner. I mean, good lord. The Link's Awakening remake was the last reveal in Nintendo's February Direct back in 2019. The day before Valentine's, which is fitting since Tetris 99 also got announced that day, and that game feels like a toxic relationship, whereas Link's Awakening actually has some charm. The original is one of the most impressive titles on the Game Boy, being able to fit an entire full Zelda experience on a handheld built like a soap bar, something you know nothing about. And the remake is basically the same, but with all the modern enhancements that you would expect. The map is fully interconnected, so you're not going through screens constantly. The extra buttons make it so that you're not constantly pausing the game just to switch items, as well as making items like the power bracelet something that's just a natural upgrade to Link instead of something you have to equip. Seriously, that was really dumb. The game feels really smooth, at least on the Switch 2, with all the frame rate issues removed since the Switch 1 is, well, the Switch 1. But the most jarring and obvious change you're probably going to notice is the art style. A lot of people just don't like the whole toy aesthetic, which I get. I mean, I'm biased to those since I still think Link Between Worlds has the best look for a 2D Zelda game. But the way I see it, the toy aesthetic is kinda similar to playing pretend with your action figures or Legos, or coming up with crazy scenarios with your imagination. Which, given the nature of this game's story, is pretty damn fitting. Ironically, for a game in the Zelda series, there isn't any mention or appearance of Zelda, Ganon, well, kinda, the Triforce, hell, not even Beetle. But Dampé's here, so I guess that makes up for it. The island of Koholint is so colorful and filled with secrets in various locations and set pieces. There's mermaids and talking animals, mysterious voices on the phone, and grandmas that scream. While the places that you visit are pretty standard, you do have to remember that this was originally a Game Boy game, and in a lot of ways, Link's Awakening has things that completely set itself apart from any other entry in the series. One of the first items you get as early as the first dungeon is the Rock Feather, which not only lets you jump, which in itself is pretty rare for a Zelda game, but it's also primarily used in these side-scrolling sections, which are even used in boss fights, despite how easy they are. There's a whole damn dungeon maker you can mess around with, which is pretty limiting, but it is unique. There's this big item trading quest that, unlike most trade quests in Zelda, is required to do in order to progress at certain points. And while it is a little annoying, I think it helps in getting to know the characters and feeling more attached to the item, which again, given the ending, is important. I like this one NPC that says he'll be lost in the hills later, like he somehow premeditated getting stuck. Like any Zelda game, there's a certain amount of dungeons you need to complete in order to get important items, in this case the instruments or the sirens that are needed to leave the island. And I think it's the only game in the series that requires you to actually find keys to unlock dungeons. There are pretty standard designs for the most part, but they do manage to feel different from each other, and most of them are pretty solid, except for the last two, which are pretty ass. It's also the first game in the series to give every dungeon its own unique theme instead of one that plays during all of them. Which, speaking of the soundtrack, for the most part, it's pretty nice. Every track from the originals received a nice new arrangement, and while I'm not a music theory guy whatsoever, the music always gives off a soft, quaint sort of feeling. Flutes, xylophones, violins, they're all used to embody the coziness of Koholint Island, as well as the dark secrets that lie within. It's pretty good stuff, and it gives it a unique sound compared to others in the series. A lot of people like Face Drawing specifically, the music that plays during the 6th dungeon, not only because it sounds like the backing track to a fucking opera, but because of what it means by the time you get to hear it. At this point, you've probably already learned that, spoiler warning I guess if you care or somehow don't already know, that the island of Koholint is all an illusion. Every location, every living thing, well, except Dampé I guess because he's still around, is all just a dream, and once the Windfish is awakened, it will cease to exist. It's probably the worst kept secret in the game because they make it super obvious in the fact that Zelda plots always seem to suffer from a case of not being good. But the reality of the truth still hurts, especially when you consider who you'll be losing. Marin is one of the first people you meet when you start, and she's pretty sweet. She's kind, she can sing, she can smack the shit out of people with a bell. She's also the one that teaches you the Battle of the Windfish, ironically the one song that will cause her to, well, die. You can go on a little date with her halfway through the game, and she talks about how she dreams of seeing what's beyond the island, how meeting Link gives her hope that something beyond Koholint even exists. In a way, playing her song is the only way to free herself. She's really the first example of the series having any meaningful side characters, which will become one of its strengths from this game on. It also means if Link canonically gets the most play, I'm sorry, I don't make the rules, fuck you, even if your Zelda is. There's this one dungeon that was originally added in the DX version as entire gimmick is being in color, which, given how much of a big deal the guards seem to make of it, just makes me think that everybody on Koholint sees the world in Game Boy green. You know, maybe they should take a hint from that old Game Gear commercial. And once you finish it, you can choose between a blue tunic that increases defense or a red tunic that increases offense. I usually go for the blue tunic, but the red is useful if you don't want to go out of your way for the upgraded Koholint sword, which you can only get if you collected enough of these seashells scattered throughout the map. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, is probably the reason they added all those spider tokens to Ocarina of Time. Thanks for that, by the way. There's this whole scene. Link's Awakening is a simple game, but it's a simple game with heart. It has a colorful world to explore with characters you get to like, fun items to use and solve puzzles with, a nice soundtrack. It has all the qualities of a standard Zelda title. But it's also a fucking fever dream. It's so unlike any other entry in the series that it feels crazy to even be a part of it. I mean, what other Zelda game has you crawl into a grave to resurrect the legendary chicken from the dead? That has you help a goat confess their love to a human by catfishing them with a photo of Princess Peach? That has you fighting Mario enemies in 2D platforming sections? That has a shopkeeper who kills you with fucking black magic if you steal from them? Is it worth full price? No, not really. I mean, given that we live in a time where more $80 games are coming out, 60 could probably be considered generous. But hey, that's what used copies are for. Get your physical media now because that shit's not lasting any longer. If you can give it a shot, I'd recommend it. You may not find it all that memorable, or maybe you will, and that's the beauty of dreams. And if you can't, all I ask is that you play Link Between Worlds instead, because that game is peak.